Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to try and control everything? We plan our days down to the minute, worry about what others think of us, and cling to happiness as if we could freeze it in time. Yet no matter how tightly we hold on, life refuses to play by our rules. I want you to imagine this. You're gripping sand in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. That's what happens when we try to control life. The more we cling, the more anxious, restless, and unfulfilled we become. But what if freedom didn't come from more control, but from letting go of it? This isn't about giving up. It's about discovering a different way to live, a way the Buddha called the path of unburdening. It's a wisdom that tells us suffering isn't created by life itself, but by our resistance to it. Today, I want to share with you a series of stories and teachings, from the parable of the two arrows to the Zen farmer who embraced the unknowable, that reveal a radical truth. Real peace begins the moment we stop fighting reality. So, let's step onto this path together. Let's explore what happens when you finally stop trying to control everything. We don't usually notice it, but control is the invisible weight most of us carry every single day. Think about it. We schedule every minute. We refresh our inboxes like our life depends on it. We replay conversations in our heads, trying to imagine how we could have said it better. It's like we're constantly pulling on invisible strings, hoping the world will dance the way we want it to. But here's the catch. The more we try to control, the heavier life feels. Imagine a parent who wants to protect their teenager from every possible mistake, tracking every text, every friend, every decision. What starts as love quickly turns into suffocation, not just for the child, but for the parent too. Or take the employee who micromanages every project detail, desperate to avoid failure. At first, it feels responsible, but over time, the pressure grows unbearable, leaving them anxious, restless, and burned out. Control promises safety, but what it actually delivers is exhaustion. It locks us in a cycle of anticipation and disappointment, always waiting for the next thing to go wrong. And the cruel irony is that no matter how tightly we grip, the world keeps moving on its own terms. This is the hidden burden of control, the illusion that if we just try harder, life will finally cooperate. But as we'll soon see, the truth is very different. This is the hidden burden of control, the illusion that if we just try harder, life will finally cooperate. But here's the truth. Control doesn't just make life heavy. It traps us in a cycle, a loop that feeds on itself. The more we push, the more resistance we feel, and the more restless we become. So let's take a closer look at this loop, the endless effort, the constant anxiety that keeps us stuck. Trying to control life is like running on a treadmill that never stops. You're pouring energy into every step, but no matter how fast you run, you're not actually moving forward. Instead, you're burning yourself out. When we resist what is, when we insist that reality should be different, we unknowingly activate old fears, frustrations, and unresolved memories. A single setback at work can trigger not just disappointment, but the echo of every failure we've ever carried. One argument with a partner can unleash a storm of anger that has little to do with this moment and everything to do with the past. This mental loop pulls our nervous system into overdrive, heart racing, mind spinning, body tense. We stay locked in a restless state, constantly battling circumstances instead of engaging with them. It's like spinning your wheels in mud. The harder you press the gas, the deeper you sink. And here's the cruel irony. The energy we spend fighting reality could have been the very energy that gave us peace, creativity, and connection. Instead, it gets swallowed up by anxiety. This endless cycle is why so many of us feel tired even when we haven't done anything big. We're not just living, we're fighting life itself. And as long as we keep firing this engine of control, peace will always feel out of reach. This endless loop of effort and anxiety leaves us restless, drained, and stuck. But the Buddha pointed out something profound. Much of our suffering doesn't come from what actually happens to us. It comes from how we react to it. And that wisdom is beautifully captured in one of the oldest parables of all, the story of the two arrows. Imagine this. You're walking through the forest and suddenly an arrow strikes you. The pain is sharp, unavoidable. That's the first arrow, the inevitable pain of life. It could be illness, rejection, loss, or any hardship that comes simply because we are human. No one escapes this arrow, But here's what often happens next. Before we even have time to breathe, we fire a second arrow at ourselves. We ask, why me? What did I do to deserve this? How could they treat me that way? That second arrow is the anger, resentment, shame, and self-pity we add on top of the original pain, and often it hurts far worse than the first. Think about losing a job. The first arrow is the shock and uncertainty. The second arrow is the endless rumination. I'm a failure. I'll never recover. My life is ruined. Or imagine heartbreak. The first arrow is the grief of separation. The second arrow is the story we tell ourselves. I'll never be loved again. I must not be worthy. The wisdom here is simple but life-changing. We cannot avoid the first arrow, but we can choose not to shoot the second. Our real power doesn't lie in controlling life's inevitable pains. It lies in controlling our response, and that shift is the beginning of freedom. So if much of our suffering comes from that second arrow, the question becomes, why do we keep firing it? The answer lies in something even deeper, our attachment, the way we cling to ideas, identities, and possessions as if they were permanent. And this clinging, though invisible, entangles us more tightly than any rope. Attachment is often misunderstood. We think it's just about material things, money, houses, success. But in the teachings of the Dharma, attachment runs far deeper. It's like vines wrapping themselves around a tree. Slowly, silently, they choke the life within. We cling not only to what we own, but to who we believe we are. We cling to opinions. I must be right. We cling to identities. I am my job title, my achievements, my failures. We even cling to stories from the past, whether glorious or shameful, as if they define our worth forever. And the more tangled we become in these vines, the harder it is to breathe freely in the present moment. Think about it. Someone criticizes us, and it stings, not because of the words themselves, but because it threatens the identity we've clung to. Or we replay past mistakes, unable to let go, as though carrying them somehow proves something about who we are. But freedom begins when we see these vines for what they are, illusions of permanence in a world that is constantly changing. The unburdened mind is like a lotus leaf on water, touching life fully, but never drowning in it. Clinging is what ties us to suffering. Letting go is what unties the knot. So much of our suffering comes from clinging, holding on to identities, opinions, or outcomes as if they were fixed. But what if the problem isn't just clinging to things, but clinging to the very labels we attach to life itself? Good, bad, success, failure. We rush to judge every event, but do we really know what it means? That's where the story of the Zen farmer offers a timeless lesson. Once upon a time, a farmer's only horse ran away. His neighbors came rushing over and said, "What bad luck?" The farmer simply replied, "Bad luck, good luck, who knows?" A few days later, the horse returned, bringing a herd of wild horses with it. The neighbors cried, "What amazing luck!" Again, the farmer shrugged, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" Not long after, the farmer's son broke his leg while trying to tame one of the horses. The neighbors groaned, "Such terrible luck!" The farmer repeated calmly, "Bad luck, good luck, who knows?" And then when the army came to conscript young men for war, the son was spared because of his broken leg. The story is simple, yet profound. The farmer's wisdom wasn't about predicting the future. It was about refusing to label the present. He recognized that life's events are part of a larger unfolding that we cannot see in the moment. How often do we call something the worst thing that ever happened, only to realize years later it led us to growth, love, or a new beginning? The Zen farmer teaches us to loosen our grip on judgment. Instead of stamping every moment as good or bad, we can simply say, "Who knows?" And in that space of not knowing, peace has room to breathe. The Zen farmer shows us the freedom that comes when we stop labeling life as good or bad. But this raises an important question. If we stop judging and stop trying to control, does that mean we should just give up? The answer is no. Letting go is not resignation. It is a skill, a conscious practice of engaging with life differently. Instead of pouring all our energy into controlling outcomes, we redirect that energy toward wise action, action rooted in clear intention, rather than desperate grasping. Imagine an athlete stepping onto the field. If their mind is consumed with fear of losing, every move will be stiff, hesitant. But if they release the obsession with the scoreboard and simply focus on playing with full presence, their performance often flows more naturally. Or Think about an artist painting not to win awards, but to express truth. The joy is in the act itself, not in what others decide about it. This is what surrendered action looks like. Working, loving, creating with complete attention while releasing the need to manipulate how things turn out. It's not about caring less, it's about caring more wisely. When we stop clinging to results, we reclaim energy, clarity, and even joy in the process itself. The paradox is that when we stop trying to force life, we finally find the strength to live it fully. Letting go, then, is not about apathy. It is about acting with presence and wisdom. But nowhere is this more misunderstood than in the realm of love. People often fear that detachment will make them cold, that letting go means caring less. Yet the truth is the opposite. When we release attachment, love becomes even more profound. Because what we call love so often gets tangled up with control. We try to possess people, to keep them close, to make them fit the story we want. But attachment is fueled by fear, the fear of losing what we cling to. And fear always builds walls. Real love, by contrast, is open-handed. It's not about holding someone tight so they never leave. It's about meeting them fully in this moment, knowing they are impermanent, and loving them anyway. Think of a parent watching their child grow. They know the child will one day walk out into the world, make mistakes, and even leave home. To cling would be to smother them. But to let go is to love them more completely here and now, without trying to control their future. That is love without chains. And the fruits of this letting go are not abstract. They are deeply tangible. A calmer mind, a lighter heart, a nervous system no longer clenched in anxiety. Presence replaces rumination. Clarity replaces confusion, and at the deepest level, a foundation of peace emerges, solid as rock, unmoved by praise or blame. This is the paradox. The less we cling, the more fully we live. The less we try to control, the more strength and love flow through us. In the end, letting go is not a loss. It is the discovery of a freedom that was waiting within us all along. So what happens when we stop trying to control everything? We don't collapse into chaos. We collapse into freedom. The Buddha's teachings remind us that life was never meant to be gripped like a clenched fist. It was meant to be lived with open hands. When we stop firing the second arrow, when we loosen the vines of attachment, when we learn to act with wise intention instead of desperate control, something remarkable happens. Our minds grow lighter, our hearts softer, and our lives fuller. We discover that love doesn't disappear when we let go, it expands. Peace doesn't arrive when the world obeys us. It arrives when we finally stop resisting it. The paradox is clear. The less we cling, the more we grow. The less we control, the freer we become. So maybe the invitation for you is this. Notice one place in your life where you're gripping too tightly. What if you let go, even just a little? What might you discover? If this message resonates, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment about your own journey of letting go. And above all, take this wisdom with you, not as theory, but as practice. Because freedom doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins the moment you release your grip.